Hello my friends, Paul here in the RoJoBe Music Workshop and welcome to part 6 of the Irish tenor banjo project. Okay, so in the previous episode I'd shown how I'd fitted the fretboard and shaped it and got it all sanded and nicely flush with the neck, and how I had marked and cut the fret slots, and also marked and drilled the fret dot marker holes, and then I started to insert the fret dot markers, and it was going really well, continued to go really well, and I got that job done. So they are now all in, looking amazing, and I did have to sand it a little bit. The two 12th fret dots and I think one of the others were a tiny little bit proud, but these things are only plastic, so they sand really easily, and I used my leveling beam so that I knew that I was going to get nice and level with the sanding, and they sanded up pretty quick and easily and nicely. And now it looks and feels absolutely fantastic. Really happy with that. So the job I have to do now is to fit the frets. So I already have all of the frets cut to length, because that's quite time consuming and boring to watch. So I've got all 20 frets there. Actually, I've only got 19 frets there because I have already fitted one off camera as a test, number 1. So that one's in there. Now I have to confess, I did have to actually go through all of these fret slots and cut them wider, because I could not get that first fret started. So I originally used my proper fret saw. This is like 0.3 millimeters thick. And I just couldn't get the fret started in there. It was the fret slots were too narrow, so I was a little bit disappointed with that. But I do have this other saw, which is also technically a fret saw, but it has a thicker blade, probably 0.5 mil, which doesn't sound like a lot of difference, but trust me, it is. And I did the same thing with this, put a piece of tape across the bottom as a depth gauge, and I went through all of the fret slots and recut them with this saw so that they're a little bit wider. And it was a bit nerve-wracking, because if I slipped, just a fraction of a millimeter, I'd ruined it, and I would have to start all over again. Wouldn't have been happy with that. So I'm now starting to put the frets in. As I said, I already have them all cut to length. That's a fairly long process and a bit boring. So let me just zoom in a little bit. Where's me zoomy? Okay, so like I said, I already have the first one in, and it's gone in and seated nicely. So I'm using my normal fret hammer, which has a brass head one side and the plastic the other side. I'm using that. And I have this other small hammer as well, which has plastic and nylon. They're about the same weight, about the same size, and they're equally as good for this job. So let's crack on with these frets. So I have cut them exactly to length, apart from the filing that will need doing. So I need to make sure I line up this edge all the way down. So I'm putting the non-cut end of the fret all the way down this side, because this is the side where my hand will be. Bear in mind, I'm left-handed, so my right hand will be up and down the fretboard here. So I want the smoother side down this side. Right, so I've got it mounted in the neck block here, and just a roll of tape under this end just to keep it level and reasonably stable. So just line that up and gently tap it in with my regular fret hammer. As I said, I'm using the plastic side because I found that the brass will mark the frets a little bit, so I'm sticking to the plastic side. Still got to go in a little bit more this end. Looking pretty good. I'm not too worried at this stage about, you know, level and proper seating. I can go through them all again once I've got them in. Just want to get them all in first, and then worry about finalising them once they're all in and I'm happy with them. I really hope I don't have to pull any out and do it again, because as I said, this wood is very soft and it chips and tears out pretty easily. So I've got to be a bit careful. That's a little bit too far over. I'll just try and tap it back that way. That's it. Okay. Not wanting to seat properly, that one. That's got it. A little bit in the middle, actually. Gotcha. Right, that's 3. 17 to go. Okay, that end. Yeah, they're going in much easier now that I've widened the slots a bit. Not too much, obviously. I'm kind of stuck with that where that is now. I mean, I'm going to, you know, bevel all the edges anyway, so if they're a fraction out, it doesn't matter at this stage. Okay. Continue on. Okay. Nicey nice. Okay. So yeah, they're going in pretty well. Pretty happy. I think these frets might have a slightly wider tang underneath, i.e. the piece that goes into the slot. It might be slightly wider than other frets. I don't know, because I'm sure I normally use my regular fret saw for cutting the slots, but honestly I can't remember. Anyway, it is what it is. Job's done. Actually, these frets are a bit dirty. They're going to need cleaning up once I've finished. Wouldn't expect that from brand new frets, but there you go. Okay. Yeah, I can see that they're going to need a bit of leveling, but that's pretty normal when you put new frets in, especially in a new fretboard. You almost always, in fact I would say pretty much always, have to do some leveling once they're all in. That's normal, and I think possibly even more so on a flat non-radiused fretboard. I don't necessarily know why that should be, but it does seem to be the case. I suppose everything being supposedly flat and level, you know, it kind of accentuates any high points or low points. Okay. It needs to seat a little bit more, that one. Nice. Well, maybe not. It's got to go a bit more yet, that one. It's not wanting to go down that end. is that then? It's actually gone in a little bit crooked, so that's going to be tricky to straighten that up. Did that work? Not so much. Yeah, it's got, for some reason it's gone in a bit crooked. I think, you know, I was kind of on the cusp with these fret slots. They were either too small or, as they are now, just a fraction too big, which allows them to, you know, move this way, which I don't want, but there it is. That's got him. Well, almost. I'm gonna just switch to the brass side. I don't really like using that, but it's kind of more shocking. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay. Uh-oh. So I'm going to have to watch when they go in, make sure they're not crooked before I seat them all the way. That's better, that's much more straight. Good. As I said, once they're all in, I'll go through them all again, make sure they're all seated, and then proceed to the leveling, which is a relatively satisfying part of the job. Relatively, compared to some aspects. How are we doing for time? Loads of time. Come on, don't play up. Number 9 fret. So I'll do this one and one more, and I'm halfway there. It's gone a bit crooked as well. Oh dear, that's way out. Okay. Yeah, it's gone a bit crooked, that one. So, as I said, these fret slots are now, if anything, just a tiny fraction on the large side, which is allowing them to, you know, topple one way or the other. But once they're all the way in, provided they go in straight, they will straighten themselves up. That's better. Okay. Right, one more for halfway. Starts to get a bit more tricky down this end for, you know, supporting it on this block. It tends to move around a bit, which is not ideal. Come on, don't play up now, we got this far. Ow. Okay. Popped up that end. More in the middle. Yep. Okay. Oh dear. Okay. So yeah, I do really need that supported there, because if you don't, you know, you can do all sorts of damage. But the problem when I get this far up the fretboard with the neck block under there, it's supported, but it's not stable. We'll get there. Ow. Again. So get halfway with almost no problems, and then it just starts to not go wrong, but become complicated for no apparent reason. Why? Okay. Okay, then this one isn't seating now. Another crooked one. What's happening with that? That's got him. There we go. Yeah, as I said, they kind of guide themselves in once you go in, but if they start crooked, they can, you know, literally cut the slot over to one side. So it's best to have them going in as straight as possible. That one's gone, just about to say. Right, so number 13. Some of them are just going in really easy and some are not. Perfect, that one. I think also for some reason the longer ones, or wider if you prefer, tend to be less problematic. Not quite sure why that is, but it is, and I'm happy with that. That's another crooked one. Whoop! Just popped straight out. Got it. Okay. Almost there. Okay. getting to the last two now that will be supported under this neck block. So just take my time, do it carefully, and the time, we're okay. Guess what? Another crooked one. There it goes. Right, so yeah, now this will be the last one that will be supported by the neck block here. And then it will be basically continue resting on. Can you see? Not so much. Let me move up a bit. So the last couple, 2 or 3, will be resting on there, which is not ideal, but not too bad. That one went in easy. Right, so I'm going to put the neck block up there again. Yeah, that's not ideal, but it should be okay. Can you see? Just barely. Right, 3 more to go. One of the naughtiest fret jobs I've ever done. Didn't normally go this bad. I guess, you know, up until today, this piece of wood was never a fretboard, so I'm having to train it. And it's starting to realise who's the boss. Okay, penultimate fret. Just about have time to finish this before my video times out. Right, last one. Number 20. Looks a bit high. Right, so that's all the frets in now. Obviously I've got to go through them all again and just, you know, make sure they're all seated properly. But they're all in. Looking good. So yeah, like I said, I have to go through them all again, make sure they're seated properly. It looks pretty good, to be honest. And then after that, it's going to be leveling and then, you know, addressing the edges to get all those sharp edges off and get it all smoothed out. That's going to be the next part. Let me just see. Yeah, I mean the neck and fretboard is still perfectly straight, which is good. So like I said, I've got to go through and seat all these frets and then start to leveling, crowning and, you know, addressing the ends. So it's coming along. Won't be. Well, I'm not going to say it. Okay. So next part will be leveling and crowning and dressing the frets and basically finalising the fretboard. So in the meantime, please look after yourselves, look after each other. We will see you soon. Peace out.